Hey there, Jeff Feuders from First Century Foundations here, and I'm just sitting in my office today thinking about the incredible and historic event that has taken place, the signing of the peace agreement between Israel and Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates today in Washington, D.C. It is phenomenal to be witnesses of history in this way. Especially this year that has been so unique in terms of the pandemic and all that's been going on. But I am one of the people who said that peace in the Middle East is a long ways off. It's a long time coming. And yet here today we have this sign that perhaps, maybe, something is afoot and God is up to something. I believe that God is behind all of these things. But I can't help but think, as we watch the president and the officials from those countries signing those agreements today, the Abraham Accords, that peace is still a long way off. As a matter of fact, as one of my friends on social media, a friend from Israel, reminded me today that in the very moment that these agreements were being signed, Gaza released rockets, was firing rockets against the south of Israel, and the Iron Dome was working hard to intercept those rockets. Peace is a ways off still. Not to take anything away from what happened today. Today is miraculous. It's amazing. It's hard to believe that any Arab nation would recognize Israel's right to exist, let alone broker a peace deal with Israel. And so I am very excited about what we are witnessing today. It is truly a momentous occasion in the history of our world and in the history of the Middle East, absolutely. There's been other positive signs for Israel of late as well. A few countries who have moved their embassies to Israel. Serbia, Kosovo, which is a Muslim majority country, going to move their embassy to Jerusalem. And the country of Malawi also, just in the last month or so, have made these announcements. And so it's amazing. There is a turning of the tide, it would seem, in terms of how people are looking at Israel, how people are viewing Israel and the Jewish people. And yet, as I thought about and prayed about what we have been witnessing and this idea of peace in the Middle East, I am sorry, but the only verse that kept sort of coming back to my mind comes from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. And I don't want to be somebody who's always down or talking about doomsday or any of that kind of thing. But I believe these are signs that the end, that the culmination of God's plan for the world is coming. And we are being reminded again today that there is a moment coming when all of this will, end. 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 1, it says, "Brothers, about times and dates we do not need to write you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night." And it's this next verse that catches my attention today. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. Now, I'm not saying that the end is nigh, but I'm saying that today is a reminder that peace and safety are fleeting things, and that there is something coming still in the future that we need to be aware of, we need to be reminded of. Paul goes on and he says, "You brothers are not in darkness so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You are all sons of the light and sons of the day. We don't belong to the night or the darkness, so then let us not be like others who are asleep. Let's be alert and let's be self-controlled." And then further down it says that Christ died for us so that whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with him. Therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. Earlier in one of the previous verses, Paul also alludes to the fact that since we belong to the day, we need to be self-controlled, putting on faith and love as a breastplate and the hope of salvation as a helmet. And I think that is maybe the thing that I want to sort of focus in on here, that we need to be in these days and in these moments. We need to celebrate what's happening today between Israel and the U.S. and Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. We need to celebrate the fact that Israeli flights can fly over Saudi Arabia now. We need to celebrate the fact that these countries are moving their embassies to Jerusalem, because it's all positive for the nation of Israel and for the Jewish and the Arab people. And yet, peace isn't here just yet. Rockets flying from Gaza. The Palestinians are very upset at these other Arab nations, and so it's causing further conflict in the land of Israel. But I believe that true peace will only come when Jesus Christ, Yeshua, the Jewish Messiah, the Prince of Peace, is once again in control of our world. And I think that the beginning of that will be the Jewish people and people all around the world turning to Messiah as their own Messiah, as their Savior. And so those are my thoughts today, that the hope of what we have to look forward to, that hope comes when we put on the helmet of salvation, when we understand that Messiah came to save the world. And there is a day coming, Paul says from Romans 11, when all Israel will be saved. And I believe that that day is the day that we will really begin to look towards the end coming, because once Israel turns to Yeshua as her Messiah, then his return will not be far off. Anyway, those are my thoughts today. You can take them or leave them. We can debate them if you want. But wow, what an incredibly historic day as Israel and two Arab nations sign a peace agreement. We will see what this may lead to in the future. There's talk of other nations joining them, and truly, truly historic times. Let's be vigilant. Let's look to the future. Let's serve Jesus and have the hope that salvation will come to Israel and to the whole world, and then the end will come. God bless you today. Thanks for listening in.